And you've shown
That's
us
what I'm
that long
concerned,
term.
yeah, we've seen that.
I mean, if we didn't raise taxes, and, you know, we'd be in, all those would be probably gone by now anyway. If we hadn't, because where are you gonna get the money? Comes in, you gotta spend it, and then there's a disconnect, so.
And we know we're not having a funding formula. I mean, Mason, unfortunately, that doesn't sound like one's coming. I haven't spoken to any representatives, but that's really sad that they can't do that, because we're suffering for it.
Mr. O'Toole, another question that I discussed with the senators Thursday and Friday of last week. Do you have a general estimate, or can you separate the legal fees that we are paying relative to the purchase by Velocity of Ridgefield? How much has it cost the taxpayers to fight?
Excuse me, sir. Can we ask that question? I mean, we're trying to get through this budget thing here. If you want specific, I mean, you're talking about Ridgefield.
No, I'm talking about legal fees.
Well,
Right,
but
legal fees.
Generated
That's a line
to
item.
Ridgefield.
Is correct, Mr. DePlacido?
Yes, it is, but we're talking about, you were talking about Ridgefield too.
Right, and into my description of legal fees, can Mr. O'Toole give the board I'm sure that there are billable hours relative to the sale of Ridgefield to Velocity,
I
right?
think that's part of the information that we're trying to put together for you based on, I think that's request number 5 from
Okay.
last week.
Do you have an approximate amount? No,
I don't.
okay.
We're
Because
trying to get a budget put together, so it's,
I made a comment at one of the board meetings that legal fees, of what I look at it at the Series 300, was anywhere from $350,000 to $450,000, and Mr. Senate smiled. I don't know whether that was to validate what I said, or to laugh at me. I don't know. I don't know. I could not understand his body language. What I am stating, and I stated it before, why are the taxpayers of Mill Creek Township paying for the legal fees that the buyer is supposed to be paying, not the taxpayers? If I want to sell my home, and I have 2 people out there, and this is by example, and I hope I'm not interrupted. I'm going to sell the house. I have 2 buyers. One buyer says, well, you know, I came in before you, and the realtor say, well, this person already put the bid in, etc. And I'm going to pay a buyer's attorney to buy my home? I don't think so. So it's akin to that. And in fact, I wrote it in an email correspondence to Mr. Hall, to Mr. DePlacido, and I think you received a copy. I know the board of directors received a copy. We have to look at all aspects. Now, if it costs $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, then let's bill the buyer. I mean, let's face it. Since 2014, I've been chastised as a public citizen. I've been chastised by Mr. Senate for spending $100,000 on right to knows. Wait a minute. Who determined that? Who determined the $100,000? And I'll close with that statement. I would like to know, and I'm sure that the board would like to know, how much money are we spending on support of litigation, the legal fees, to protect or to defend the buyer of Ridgefield, okay? Mr. President, I'm going to have to leave.
Okay.
Because this was a very fast meeting right now, so.
Before you leave,
All right.
would you mind if I ask Mr. Elliott a question? Because I'm a little confused. When you talk about, somebody help me, when you're talking about the legal fees, are you talking about the fees, the legal fees incurred in, for lack of better terminology, with regarding MRCS, challenging us selling the property? Is that what we're discussing, those legal fees?
I'm not sure where he's
What are the legal fees, right? If Montessori is suing,
Okay.
right, they're suing, and it's in, I believe, Commonwealth Court,
Okay.
Regional charter.
the regional chart, correct.
It's branded a little different.
Right. Right. Who should be defending that legal suit? Or who should be responding to the legal suit? If the defendant is who? If the plaintiff is Montessori Charter School, I would assume that they're the plaintiff, correct? Who are they suing?
I'm not sure it matters, Lou, because you're paying for their attorney, and you're paying for our attorney, and everybody in this room is paying for their attorney and paying for our attorney. What's the difference?
The difference is very simple. Why are we paying the legal fees?
Because we're taxpayers.
Okay, I'd like to
Same
refocus
reason
this
we paid
meeting
his
back on the
legal fees.
budget,
Okay.
please.
I thank you.
Let's
Have a good
In
night.
his 3 litigations.
Okay, I got a question. For discussion. Is there any way, and I realize that you've been busy, we're talking about this year's budget, and we've been talking about what about the year after that, and the year after that, so on and so forth. Is there any way that you could make a 4-year projection so that we could back up and say, okay, based upon, we're going to get rid of alternate debt, what else do we know for sure? That you can have a reasonable guess at revenue and expenditures based upon what you know. So we could kind of look and say, all right, if we're going to raise taxes, we're going to get rid of maybe this, this, and this, when, and then how much money should we be 4 years from now? Are there any tsunamis out there 4 years from now, 5 years from now?
We're moving in that, and I've always looked at it by just taking our big 4, our salaries, our benefits, which primarily PSERS, FICA, and medical, and then our debt. I've looked at those areas, and 78% or 74% of our total budget's salaries and bennies, so we have a good idea of really what that will be down the year, given that if you have a contract,
Right.
you're gonna have to adhere to
You
that.
can project it.
All right, and the debt, we know what our debt payments are gonna be until they're paid off at the end of, 2026. So I do look at those big ticketed items, which is what, at that point in time, you're talking 82% of your total budget of looking at it. And then now we've been really pushing the last couple of months of developing more long-term plans, especially related to our facilities. Looking long-term, we know that our facilities are gonna continue to need something and down the line. So we can probably give a pretty good idea of 4 years. I mean, I've always looked at the big ones. We've started to add that in the element of the facilities, our equipment. So we've been taking it further. But yeah, I can provide you.
The reason why, and this is for everybody else, is so when you look at somebody who doesn't understand what we know, is you can explain to them, okay, this is why I did what I did. Is because it's not just a 1-year program. We're looking 2, 3, 4, 5 years down, and this is what we're going to see. So we should start doing it now, or maybe we should start doing it now, so that we're prepared 4 years from now.
Do you want to use this year as year 1? This upcoming
Yeah.
year as year 1?
I mean, this is up for everybody else. What else does everybody else think? So that we can kind of have not just 1 year, but we can have an idea of what we're going to be doing next year. And I realize that there's only so many things you can project, you can guess on.